In the sprawling megacity of Neo-Eden, beneath the shadow of towering skyscrapers that pierced the smog-choked sky, lay the vast expanse of the energy farms. Here, amidst rows upon rows of stationary bikes, the underclass of society pedaled tirelessly. They were the unseen engine of the city, generating the power that lit the opulent lives of those above, all for the meager reward of pulse credits. Kalen Reed was one of these countless cogs in the great machine of Neo-Eden. Day in and day out, he mounted his bike, his legs moving in endless circles, powering the city with his labor. The routine had worn grooves into his soul, each day blurring into the next with numbing sameness. Since the tragedy that had taken his brother, leaving him a fortune in pulse credits and an ocean of grief, Kalen had felt adrift in a sea of despair. The energy farms were a place of noise, a constant din of machinery and the heavy breathing of exhausted workers. But one day, amidst the cacophony, Kalen heard something different. A voice, clear and hauntingly beautiful, cut through the monotony. It was a woman, singing a melody so pure and poignant that it seemed to momentarily lift the weight of the world from his shoulders. "Did you hear that?" Kalen whispered to the man pedaling next to him, a fellow laborer whose name he barely knew. The man shrugged, his focus unbroken. "Hear what?" "Just more noise." But to Kalen, it was anything but noise. Over the following days, he found himself listening for the voice, a beacon of light in the dreary darkness of his existence. Her singing became the one thing he looked forward to, a momentary escape that made the unbearable slightly more tolerable. One evening, as the shift was nearing its end and the fatigue was at its peak, Kalen finally caught a glimpse of her. She was across the room, a figure of grace in a sea of despair, her lips moving softly as she sang, oblivious to the world around her. Even from a distance, he could see the way her presence seemed to alter the space around her, as if she were a star around which the rest of them unknowingly orbited. "Who is she?" Kalen asked a co-worker as they filed out of the farm at the end of the shift. "That's Arya." "Keeps to herself mostly," the co-worker replied with a shrug, echoing the detachment that pervaded the lives of the energy farm workers. But Kalen couldn't just shrug her off. Arya's voice had awakened something within him, a spark of hope, or perhaps the stirrings of a purpose he had thought lost. Night after night, he lay awake, her melodies playing in his mind, until an idea began to take shape, a plan not just to hear her sing in the oppressive confines of the energy farms, but to give her voice the platform it deserved. It was a reckless idea, born of desperation and the haunting beauty of Arya's voice. To use his inherited pulse credits in such a way was to defy the very system they lived under. Yet, what did he have to lose? His pulse credits were a fortune he hadn't earned and barely used, a reminder of the brother he had lost and the emptiness of his existence without him. Kalen made up his mind. He would do it. He would change their stars with the only thing of value he had left. As the first light of dawn crept into his modest quarters, casting a pale glow on the stark reality of his life, Kalen Reed felt a resolve he hadn't known in years. Tomorrow, he would speak to Arya. Tomorrow, he would set his plan into motion. Kalen Reed found himself drawn to the energy farm not just by the necessity of labor but by a newfound curiosity for Arya Winters. From a distance, he watched her, noting how her slender frame seemed almost too delicate for the harshness of their world, yet her voice soared, strong and unfettered, above the monotonous drone of pedaling and machinery. Her singing became a whispered topic among the workers, a rare thread of beauty woven into the fabric of their dreary existence. "She's got a voice that could make the city's lights flicker," one worker said, a hint of wonder in his tired eyes. Kalen couldn't agree more. One day, Driven by a blend of admiration and a burgeoning sense of purpose, Kaylin approached her. Their initial conversation was awkward, a dance of hesitance and curiosity. "You sing beautifully," Kaylin managed to say, feeling suddenly out of depth. Arya looked surprised, her guard momentarily slipping. "Thank you," she replied, her voice a soft echo of the melodies she shared freely. "It's just my way of coping, I guess. A little light in all this darkness." "Why do you sing?" Kaylin asked, genuinely curious about the source of her inspiration. Arya paused, her gaze drifting towards the endless rows of pedaling workers. "Because I dream of a world where beauty isn't just a memory. Where voices like mine can do more than just echo in the darkness." Kaylin felt a stir of admiration for her courage and vision. "What if I told you there might be a way to share your voice beyond these walls? To use it to inspire not just us but the whole city?" Arya's expression shifted through disbelief and cautious hope. "What do you mean?" Kaylin explained his idea, haltingly at first, then with growing conviction. He spoke of his inherited pulse credits and how he believed they could offer her a platform, a chance to change their fates. Arya listened, her skepticism warring with the flicker of a dream too long suppressed. "That sounds impossible," she said, but her eyes betrayed her intrigue. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because your voice should be heard," Kaylin said simply. "And because I think together, we might just make a difference." They agreed to meet again, away from the prying eyes and ears of the energy farm, to discuss the plan in detail. As they parted ways, the air between them crackled with the promise of possibility. For the first time in what felt like forever, both Kaylin and Arya allowed themselves to hope, to dream of a future where Arya's voice could shine as a beacon for all of Neo Eden. The chapter closes with Kaylin watching Arya return to her bike, her silhouette merging with the masses yet unmistakably distinct. In her, he saw not just the promise of change but the embodiment of resilience and beauty in a world that had forgotten the meaning of both. In the dim light of his small living space, Kaylin Reed sat with his device open, the glowing screen illuminating pages of information on pulse credits, the lifeblood of Neo Eden. He scrolled through data, each flick of his finger revealing more about the currency that powered their city, earned through relentless physical labor and spent on the essentials of survival. The disparity was stark. While workers like him pedaled for their lives, earning just enough to scrape by, the elite of Neo Eden spent lavishly, indulging in luxuries beyond the wildest dreams of the underclass. Kaylin's mind wandered back to the day he received the news of his brother's disappearance, a void that had left him with an inheritance of 15 million pulse credits. The credits, which should have felt like a fortune, weighed heavily on him, a constant reminder of his loss and the cruel indifference of the city they called home. As he contemplated using this fortune to change Arya's fate, Kaylin felt the gravity of his decision. It wasn't just about the credits, it was about challenging the very foundations of their society. He sought counsel from an old friend, Marlon, who worked alongside him at the farm. "Are you sure about this, Kaylin?" Marlon asked, skepticism lacing his voice. "That's a lot of credits to risk on a dream." "It's more than a dream," Kaylin replied, his determination unwavering. "It's a chance to do something meaningful, to make a real difference." But as he ventured through the city, observing the glaring divide between the haves and the have-nots, Kaylin's resolve was tested. The dilapidated quarters of the workers stood in sharp contrast to the gleaming towers where the elite resided, a visible reminder of the systemic barriers they faced. It was during a rare moment of quiet, sitting across from Arya in a secluded corner of the farm, that Kaylin made his promise. "I want to use my credits to give your voice a platform," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I believe we can inspire change." Arya's eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Kaylin, do you understand what you're proposing?" It's overwhelming." "I know," he acknowledged. "But I've never been more certain about anything. Your voice, it could be the catalyst we need." As they delved into the logistics of their plan, Discussing entry into the Apex and the complexities of transferring pulse credits, the magnitude of their undertaking became increasingly clear. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, a bond formed between them, rooted in a shared vision for a better future. The chapter concluded with Kalen alone, gazing out at the city's skyline, a labyrinth of light and shadow. In the silence, he allowed himself to dream of the possibility that Arya's voice might indeed bring about the change they so desperately sought. It was a daunting path they had chosen, but for the first time, Kalen felt a flicker of hope that their actions could ignite a flame of resistance, challenging the darkness of Neo-Eden with the power of a single, transcendent voice. Neo-Eden buzzed with anticipation for the upcoming season of The Apex, the city's most brutal and captivating talent competition. For many, the show was more than entertainment, it was a beacon of hope, a chance to escape the drudgery of the energy farms for the bright lights of fame. Arya Winters, with the help of Kalen Reed's generous sponsorship, had secured her place in the competition. The days leading up to her debut were a blur of rehearsals and preparation. Kalen watched her transform, her natural talent honed under the pressure of the looming performance. "You're going to captivate them," Kalen assured her, as they reviewed her song choice for the umpteenth time. Arya, although nervous, smiled. "Thanks to you. I just hope my voice can carry us through this." Their celebration at her acceptance was tempered by the knowledge of what the Apex represented. Behind its glitzy facade was a cutthroat arena where dreams were both made and shattered. Magnus Vale, the charismatic host of the Apex, watched Arya's audition tape with a predator's interest. "She has something raw," he mused, already plotting how to spin her story for maximum viewer engagement. Everyone loves a rags-to-riches tale. As Arya was introduced to the behind-the-scenes world of the Apex, the stark contrast between its glamorous exterior and the manipulative underbelly became painfully clear. Contestants, once hopeful, now appeared as pawns in a game where the stakes were their very souls. In the days leading up to her performance, Arya underwent a transformation. Stylists and makeup artists crafted her image, preparing her for the spotlight. Yet, in the quiet moments away from the flurry of activity, Arya found strength in her unchanged core, the purity of her voice and the depth of her spirit. The night before the competition, Arya and Kalen found solace in each other's company. "No matter what happens tomorrow, you've already changed everything," Arya whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Kalen held her gaze, his voice steady. "You're the voice Neo-Eden needs to hear. Remember, this is just the beginning." Meanwhile, Magnus Vale orchestrated his plans with cold precision. "She'll be the heart of this season," he declared to his production team. "Her story, her voice. We'll make sure the audience can't look away." As the chapter closed, Arya stood on the precipice of an unknown future, her talent and determination pitted against the machinations of the Apex and its master manipulator, Magnus Vale. The stage was set, not just for a performance, but for a battle for her dreams, her identity, and perhaps even the soul of Neo-Eden itself. The stage of the Apex was a maelstrom of lights and sounds, a far cry from the dim monotony of the energy farms. Arya Winters stood at its center, her heart pounding in her chest as she faced the sea of expectant faces. As the music began, a calm settled over her. Her voice, when it broke the silence, was a beacon of pure, haunting beauty, singing a ballad of struggle and hope that resonated deeply with her own story. Across Neo-Eden, the divide between the upper echelons and the laboring underclass blurred as Arya's voice filled the airwaves. In luxury apartments and crowded workers' barracks alike, people paused, captivated by the performance broadcasted on every screen. "She's one of us," murmured an energy farm worker, his eyes fixed on the public viewing screen, reflecting a mix of pride and wonder. "Remarkable," commented a woman from the city's elite, surprised to find herself moved by the song of a farm worker. Backstage, Magnus Vale watched, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. The audience's reaction was better than he'd anticipated. This, he whispered to himself, is going to be a sensational season. As Arya left the stage, the euphoria of the crowd's roaring applause still ringing in her ears, she was met with a rush of competitors and show staff. "Incredible performance," said one, clapping her on the back. Another, unable to mask a hint of jealousy, offered a tight-lipped smile. Meanwhile, Kalen Reed watched from a communal screen among a throng of workers, his heart swelling with pride at Arya's bravery and talent. Yet, as the crowd around him cheered, his joy was tinged with worry. The Apex was notorious for its ruthless exploitation of contestants' dreams. "Stay strong, Arya," he whispered, a silent vow to protect her from the darker corners of fame. The city buzzed with excitement long after Arya's performance ended. "Did you hear her song? It's like she's speaking for all of us," said one worker, his voice carrying a spark of hope. "Enjoy the show, but don't forget, it's just that, a show," countered another, wary of the illusion of opportunity the Apex offered. In her modest quarters provided by the show, Arya sat alone, the adrenaline of the night ebbing away. The weight of her journey, from the depths of the energy farms to the dazzling heights of the Apex, settled on her shoulders. She pondered the road ahead, aware of the challenges and temptations fame might bring. "I won't let this change me," she resolved, gazing at her reflection in the mirror. "My voice is now a beacon for those without one. This platform, this chance, I'll use it to shine a light on the shadows of Neo Eden." Chapter 5 encapsulates a moment of triumph and transition, capturing Arya's ascent as a symbol of hope and the complexities that come with stepping into the limelight. As she navigates her new reality, her resolve to remain true to her roots and leverage her voice for a greater cause sets the stage for the challenges and choices that lie ahead. After her groundbreaking performance on The Apex, Arya Winters found herself enveloped in the warm glow of success. Fans adored her, and her fellow contestants looked at her with a mix of envy and respect. She believed, naively, that she could use this platform to enact real change. But as the days passed, the veneer of glamour began to crack. Arya's schedule, her public appearances, even her personal expressions were tightly controlled by the show's producers. "We just want to make sure your message is on brand," one producer explained, her smile tight and unyielding. It wasn't until a private meeting with Magnus Vale that Arya began to see the full picture. "You're not just a singer, Arya. You're a symbol. And symbols can be powerful, or they can be controlled," Magnus said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "We expect you to be the latter." The reality of her situation became painfully clear when Arya learned about the fate of past winners. They weren't just celebrated, they were used. Their images plastered across the energy farms, their voices echoing in advertisements designed to coax more labor out of the weary workers under the guise of inspiration. Seeing her own face on a giant screen in the workers' quarters, Arya felt a deep sense of betrayal. "They're using me to pacify them," she whispered to herself, aghast. Meanwhile, Kalen Reed stumbled upon the truth of the Apex's manipulation. He saw Arya's image being used not as a beacon of hope but as a tool of control. "I thought I was helping her escape," he lamented, guilt gnawing at him. "But what if I've just changed her prison?" Kalen's attempts to reach out to Arya were thwarted by layers of management and security. Each failed attempt deepened his sense of desperation. "She needs to know the truth," he insisted, but his words fell on deaf ears, lost among the cogs of the Apex's machine. In her moments of solitude, Arya wrestled with her conscience. The platform she'd been given was a double-edged sword, offering the illusion of influence while binding her in golden chains. "I wanted to be a voice for change, not an opiate for the masses," she confided in a rare, unmonitored call to her family. Determined not to let her spirit be crushed, Arya began to subtly subvert the expectations placed upon her. During public appearances, she infused her scripted speeches with layers of meaning, hoping to awaken a sense of agency in those who listened closely. "Look beyond the surface," she urged, her message veiled but urgent. As Chapter 6 closes, Arya stands at a crossroads, her initial dreams of using the Apex as a platform for change tarnished by the harsh light of reality. Yet, within her remains a flicker of defiance, a determination to find a way to speak her truth, even in the face of overwhelming control. Her journey from naive contestant to aware participant in a larger struggle encapsulates the complex dance between power, resistance, and the quest for authenticity in a world that values none. Kaelin Reed's guilt gnawed at him relentlessly, a constant reminder of the unintended consequences of his actions. As he watched Arya, once vibrant and full of hope, now a shadow of her former self, trapped in the glittering cage of the Apex, his despair deepened. "I thought I was helping her," he muttered to himself, witnessing the strain in Arya's eyes during a televised interview, "but I've only changed her prison." Arya, though surrounded by the trappings of success, felt more isolated than ever. During one of their increasingly rare and brief encounters, she confided in Kaelin, "I feel like I'm losing myself, Kaelin. My voice isn't mine anymore, it's just another tool they use." Her words were a whisper, but they echoed loudly in Kaelin's conscience. The turning point came unexpectedly. Kaelin overheard a conversation between two Apex executives, discussing a new, more exploitative campaign using Arya's image to quell dissent in the lower sectors. The cold, calculating nature of their plans was the final straw. "I have to do something," Kaelin resolved, a mix of fear and determination in his voice. His plan was as daring as it was dangerous. Kaelin aimed to hack into the city's broadcast system, to disrupt the Apex's propaganda and reveal the truth to the masses. He knew the risks. Such an act was tantamount to declaring war on the very foundations of Neo-Eden. But the thought of Arya, used as a pawn in a game she never wanted to play, fueled his resolve. Kaelin reached out to a few trusted allies within the energy farms, those who shared his disillusionment with the system. "Are you sure about this?" one asked, the concern evident in his voice. "There's no turning back." "I know," Kaelin replied, his fingers dancing over a keyboard as he laid the groundwork for his digital rebellion. "But we can't let fear dictate our actions. Not anymore." The night of the disruption, Kaelin's heart pounded as he initiated the hack. The plan was simple yet audacious: to interrupt the Apex's live broadcast with a message of truth, exposing the exploitation and calling for unity among the oppressed. As he breached the final firewall, a sense of surreal calm settled over him. Kaelin understood the gravity of what he was about to do, the potential consequences not just for himself but for Arya and everyone involved. Yet, as he pressed the enter key, sending his carefully crafted message into the heart of Neo-Eden, he felt a spark of hope. The chapter closes on a cliffhanger, with Kaelin's message rippling out into the city, the screen flickering as it begins to broadcast his truth. In that moment, Kaelin Reed stood as a beacon of defiance, his actions a testament to the power of desperation and the lengths one would go to rectify a wrong. The fallout of his daring move remained uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope for the future. In the shadowed quiet of an abandoned warehouse, Kaelin Reed and his hastily assembled team of dissidents prepared for the most daring act of their lives. Their mission: to infiltrate Neo-Eden's tightly guarded energy network and redistribute pulse credits, leveling the economic playing field, if only for a moment. "Everyone ready?" Kaelin asked, scanning the faces of his team, each one a specialist in their field, from encryption experts to veteran hackers, all united by a common cause. Nods and murmurs of affirmation filled the room. "Let's change the world," said Lena, their lead coder, her hands poised over her keyboard. The operation kicked off with military precision. Lena and Marco, another tech genius, tackled the network's outer defenses, their screens alight with lines of code. Kaelin coordinated their efforts, keeping an eye on the security feeds they had tapped into. "Firewall's tougher than we thought," Marco announced, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We've got this," Lena shot back, her fingers flying. "Just need a bit more time." But time was a luxury they didn't have. As the minutes ticked by, the risk of detection grew exponentially. Kalen's heart raced as he watched the digital representation of their progress inch forward, painfully aware of the stakes. Suddenly, the screen flashed red. "We've got a problem," Kalen said, tension crackling in his voice. "Looks like they've got a counter-hacker." The team's resolve hardened. "They can't stop us," Lena declared, her determination undimmed. Together, they doubled their efforts, navigating the digital battlefield with a blend of skill and sheer willpower. With seconds to spare, they broke through. "Now, Kalen!" Marco shouted. Kalen executed the final command, redistributing billions of pulse credits in an instant. For a moment, there was silence, a collective breath held across the city. Then, darkness. The lights of Neo Eden flickered and died, leaving the city enveloped in an unexpected night. The team stared at their screens in disbelief, the reality of their success, and its immediate, unforeseen consequence, sinking in. "We need to move, now," Kalen urged, snapping into action. "They'll be on us any minute." As they scattered into the night, Kalen couldn't shake the weight of what they had done. Yes, they had struck a blow against the inequality that plagued Neo Eden, but at what cost? The blackout, while temporary, would have repercussions they hadn't fully considered. Perched atop a nearby building, Kalen looked out over the darkened cityscape, a silent witness to the chaos they had unleashed. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, a stark reminder of the fine line between heroism and recklessness. Did we do the right thing? He wondered aloud, the question hanging unanswered in the cold night air. The redistribution of pulse credits was a victory, but the blackout was a stark illustration of the delicate balance of power, a balance they had just disrupted. As the chapter closed, Kalen Reed stood alone, contemplating the true cost of their actions. The darkness enveloping Neo Eden was a metaphor for the uncertainty that lay ahead. They had set out to hack the pulse of the city, but in doing so, they had exposed the heart of its fragility. The path forward was unclear, but one thing was certain: Neo Eden would never be the same. As the lights of Neo Eden flickered out one by one, the city was plunged into an unprecedented darkness. The constant hum of energy that had been the city's lifeblood was silenced, leaving a void filled with confusion and panic. From the towering residences of the elite to the cramped quarters of the energy farms, the blackout was indiscriminate, casting everyone into the same shadow. At the energy farms, the sudden halt of machinery threw the workers into disarray. "What's happening?" one worker called out, looking around as if the answers might emerge from the darkness itself. "We need to stay calm," another advised, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. Meanwhile, the city's upper sectors experienced a different kind of chaos. The luxurious gadgets and systems that had made their lives so comfortable were now useless. "All my data, my schedules, gone," lamented a well-dressed man to his equally perturbed partner. On the streets, the initial shock quickly gave way to a survival instinct. Neighbors who had scarcely spoken came together, sharing resources and comfort. Yet, not all reactions were born of community spirit. "They've broken into the store," shouted a voice, as the sound of shattering glass pierced the night, signaling the descent into looting and violence in some quarters. Kalen Reed, hidden in the shadows, watched the unfolding disaster with a growing sense of dread. "What have I done?" he whispered to himself, the weight of his actions crushing him. The goal had been to level the playing field, not to throw the city into turmoil. Aria Winters found herself amidst a group of frightened citizens, her heart heavy as she realized the extent of the blackout's impact. Despite her own fears, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the darkness. "We need to work together, help each other through this," she urged, her words bringing a semblance of calm to the panicked crowd. As the city struggled to adapt, the fragile veneer of social order began to fray. Essential services were crippled, and the darker elements of society seized the opportunity to wreak havoc. Yet, in the midst of despair, there were sparks of hope. Communities banded together, protecting their own and sharing what little they had. In a rare moment of connection, Kalen managed to reach Arya. "I never intended for this," he confessed, his voice heavy with regret. "I know," Arya replied, her tone weary yet forgiving. "But we can't undo what's been done. We have to find a way to move forward, for everyone's sake." The chapter closed with Neo Eden in a state of uncertainty, its citizens navigating the fine line between chaos and order. Amidst the darkness, the resilience of the human spirit began to shine through, hinting at the possibility of a new beginning. Kalen and Arya, each in their own way, realized that the path to rebuilding Neo Eden would be fraught with challenges but also opportunities for genuine change. The blackout, though a catastrophe, had inadvertently opened a door to a future where unity and resilience could pave the way for a brighter dawn. In the aftermath of the blackout, the streets of Neo Eden were a labyrinth of shadows. Kalen Reed moved through them with a single purpose: to find Arya Winters. The darkness seemed endless, but his resolve was a beacon guiding him forward, illuminating the path through the chaos. Arya, meanwhile, had become a pillar of strength within her community. Her voice, once confined to the stages of the apex, now served a greater purpose, weaving hope through the heart of darkness. "We'll get through this together," she assured a group of frightened children, her words a soft melody in the oppressive silence. Their reunion was a moment suspended in time, a meeting of two souls tested by adversity. "I found you," Kalen breathed, relief washing over him as they embraced amidst the desolation. "I never lost faith," Arya replied, her voice tinged with weariness and warmth. Together, in the void left by the blackout, they shared their fears and hopes, the weight of their journey pressing close. "Do you think it was worth it?" Kalen asked, his eyes searching hers in the dim light. "All the chaos we've caused?" Arya considered his question, the silence between them heavy with the echoes of their actions. "Change is never easy, nor without cost," she said slowly. "But silence, compliance, that's the price of apathy." "We sparked a conversation, Kalen. That has to count for something." They spoke of hope, of the delicate threads that bound them to the cause of rebellion. "Hope is a fragile thing," Arya mused, "but it's tenacious. Even in the darkest times, it finds a way to flourish." "And rebellion?" Kalen prodded gently, seeking clarity in the murky waters of their plight. "It's the voice of those echoes in the void," Arya responded, her determination clear. "A testament to our refusal to be silenced by fear or oppression." As they contemplated the future, their conversation turned to the daunting task of rebuilding. "We have a chance to make things right," Kalen said, his voice laced with conviction. "To build a Neo Eden that values every voice, every life." Arya nodded, her spirit reignited by the prospect of meaningful change. "It won't be easy," she acknowledged. "But nothing worth doing ever is. We'll need to be the light for others, guide them through this darkness." In a symbolic act of unity, they joined a gathering of citizens sharing whatever light they could muster, a constellation of candles and flashlights piercing the night. This simple act, a collective defiance against the despair, was a promise of solidarity and hope. Standing together, Kalen and Arya looked out over the city, their hearts heavy yet hopeful. The blackout, a cataclysm born of desperation, had revealed the depth of their resilience and the power of their convictions. As the chapter closed, the echoes of their rebellion, though faint, resounded through the void, a reminder of the enduring struggle for a better world. In the darkness, they had found not only each other but also a renewed purpose, a shared vision of a future forged in the fires of their trials, a future where the light of hope, however dim, refused to be extinguished. In the dimly lit chamber of Neo Eden's emergency council, the decision was made with a heavy heart. "We have no choice," the head counselor announced, his voice a somber echo in the silent room. "To preserve what remains of our city's power, we must seal the energy farms." The news spread like a cold shadow over Neo Eden, reaching Kaelin and Arya amidst their efforts to rally the city. "They can't do this," Kaelin protested, the words tasting bitter. "Not after everything." Arya, her face a mask of grief, whispered, "It's my fault. My voice, it was meant to unite, not to lead to this." Her eyes, once alight with the fire of change, now mirrored the darkness that engulfed their world. As the doors to the energy farms began to close, sealing the fate of millions, a palpable despair settled over the workers. "Where's our hope now?" one voice cried out, its despair a poignant testament to the dreams shattered under the weight of ambition. In the heart of this darkness, Arya found the strength for one final act of defiance. Standing atop the city's highest point, her voice carried across the airwaves, a haunting melody that spoke of loss, warning, and a plea for forgiveness. "Hear this, Neo Eden," she sang, her voice cutting through the silence. "Remember us, remember this day. Let our downfall be the beacon that guides you to a kinder future." The sealing of the farms was a silent, solemn procession. The massive doors closed with a finality that echoed through the empty corridors, each thud a nail in the coffin of the city's conscience. Neo Eden had become a tomb, a monument to its own demise. The city's reaction to Arya's final song was a mosaic of sorrow and indifference. While some wept openly in the streets, others turned away, their hearts hardened by the struggle to survive. "She sings of what we've lost," murmured an old woman, her tears shining in the moonlight. "But also of what we must find again, our humanity." Kaelin and Arya, standing together amidst the remnants of their dreams, pondered the legacy of their rebellion. "We wanted to light a spark," Kaelin said quietly, "but we never prepared for the fire." Arya nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Our revolution was born of hope, but we forgot that hope needs nurturing, a vision to grow towards. We cannot make the same mistake again." Together, they joined a silent vigil for the lost, a sea of candles flickering in the darkness, each flame a promise to remember and to learn. "This isn't the end," Arya declared, her voice steady despite the tears that streaked her face. "It's a painful lesson, but from it, we'll build a new dawn." As the night deepened, Arya's song continued to resonate, its melancholy notes a haunting reminder of the cost of change. Yet within its verses lay a glimmer of hope, a belief that even in the darkest void, the human spirit could find the strength to rise again.